Hey, what is up guys? So today we are going to be doing a deck profile that is a build your own deck profile. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now I do want to explain that this is not going to be the build. I would say about 20 of these cards are basically mandatory to play. The rest are all kind of up to you, and depending on what your playstyle is, maybe you own some of these cards, maybe you don't own some of these cards. You can kind of cater it towards your playstyle or whatever cards again that you have available. Anyways, basically a lot of hype is going around for the number 95 Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. Basically, this card has basically shot up in price. And even though it's not like a $100 plus card or anything like that, the thing is, depending on how hard Necros get hit or how hard other things get hit in the TCG list, maybe that this will be a really good deck to actually pick up, because at the moment, nothing is really too expensive to the point where it's like, I can't afford to have to put a mortgage on my house status. But nonetheless, I think it's almost like a Dragon Ruler 2.0 deck, because basically you're going to be having so much dragons in the graveyard that you're just going to be able to keep on just bringing out rank 7s, and rank 7s in the game basically are the strongest ones in the game. Now, basically, Big Eye is just, it's too strong in the game is really what it comes down to. It's always been like that. But nonetheless, yeah, it's basically Dragon Rulers 2.0, 3.0, and it actually can banish a bunch of cards. Now, I've done a few videos of this already. If you want to go ahead and check it out, kind of get an idea of how the deck runs. I've tried a lot of different builds, and I've been looking at a lot of other people's builds, and these are kind of the cards that I kind of just want to talk about, as well as give you guys a deck profile, but again, that you can customize and all that stuff. If you're just here in a NetDeck, I'll go ahead and put the link down below in the description box for a Dropbox, and you go download it, and then you can decide which cards you want. And I'll kind of basically talk about, what other cards do in the deck. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, Red as Darkness Metal Dragon. This card is really key because you need to get rid of this card, and then you're going to go ahead and bring back one of these guys, and then you just make another one. If you guys don't know what the heck this card does, it's crazy. Foolish Burial, that card's at 1, right? Don't worry, you get 3 Foolishes. And on top of that, your opponent banishes 3 cards out of their deck. So you're going to be able to, as long as you go for your play, which essentially is going to be dumping certain cards, and I'll explain that in a moment. But basically, you're going to be able to Foolish Burial 6 monsters. And then on top of that, you're going to be getting pluses because of eclipses, and maybe other cards can give you more pluses, which we can talk about once we get to them. But for the most part, you're going to be able to banish 6 cards out of your opponent's deck, and then you also get to Foolish Burial times 6. So that's basically the idea of the deck. And also it has 4,000 attack, and it can attack up to twice, and before you make it, you can also actually pop a card. The amount of pluses in the deck is pretty crazy, and you don't really even need a hand to play this. It almost reminds me of like the Dragon Rulers, when you can just keep on going for like rank 7s over and over. I mean, you can swap out the extra deck. This is not set in stone. It's just kind of cards I wanted to talk about, but I highly recommend playing 3 of these, because if you can go and banish 9 cards out of a deck that only plays like 11 monsters, you're pretty good to go. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So yeah, Red as Darkness Metal Dragon, again, it's basically used in your combo. I'll put videos down below in the description box so you guys can basically understand how the combos work. But for the most part, you're going to be very, very aggressive turn 1, and then from there, if your opponent really can't respond to what your field looks like, and usually you can make a pretty safe field, whether you make Spark Dragon or Stardust. I actually do really like Stardust in this, surprisingly, but nonetheless, this card just got too much attack, and the amount of free pluses you get is just too strong on the deck. Next at BLS, because it's pretty easy to make this, because you always make this card, because it's like a free, just like detach 1 material from this card and target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. You're always going to be able to make this card, because what you do is you make this guy, and then you just XYZ on top of XYZ, and then you XYZ on top of XYZ. So basically, you make this, then you throw this on top, then you throw this on top. But make sure if you're going to use this effect, you don't go immediately for this. Pop something first and then go for it. It also has like another effect, but it's pretty much irrelevant most of the time. Anyways, 3 Beast King, it's just level 8. Also, it kind of can fool your opponent. Maybe like if you go summon Beast King, set like some dead cards that you just really don't want right now. Your opponent's like, oh man, no one would summon Beast King without skill drain. And then if you like have a hand where you have a bunch of spells, maybe they can think you're playing with some type of like anti-meta stun. So I love Beast King just for that, and the off chance that your opponent overthinks, and sometimes they'll make different moves because they expect skill drain when Beast King summoned. Basically, he's just level 8 though, and he's an Earth, which is kind of important in this deck. Next up, we have 3 copies of Mythic Water Dragon. Now, his effect is that you can, if you control an Earth monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this special summon. You can only special summon 1 of them per turn, not that it really matters, because you basically only really need 1, and then your combos extend off of it anyway. So basically, it's just any level 2 8 monsters. You're going to make number 107, then again, you just make this, maybe pop a card, then go for this. But nonetheless, yeah, you just need level 8s is basically what the deck is oriented around. I was thinking about doing Gagas, but they didn't have as much utility necessarily as just playing cards that are just dragons. Like, I know this card's on a dragon, but this card's a dragon, so it kind of helps out. Next up, we're playing one of each of the Dragon Rulers, and then we're playing 3 copies of Eclipse Wyvern. This card is just too OP in the deck, man, especially with 3 copies of Foolish Burial. This has to be 3 Dragon-type monsters with different names, but it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to dump 2, and if you have one in your hand, you can just do whatever you want with it. But nonetheless, it's very, very strong to have 3. Then we're going to have 3 copies of Mythic Wood Dragon. This card is a card that you summon, and then you go and special this, and then this copies the level of the water, and pretty much self-explanatory. Or there's other plays that you can do if you happen to have this guy over here. But for the most part, you just want to make rank 8. Just get 2 level 8 monsters and you're good to go. Next up, Glow Bulb. And then just some level 1 tuners is really key. This card is almost like Glow Bulb in a sense, or I would say more like a Plague Spreader. Anyways, the main effect that you want with it is that if this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard and special summon it, and then it vanishes when it leaves the field. It's pretty much irrelevant, but it's just another level 1 tuner that has a little bit more utility than just like being a dragon. But nonetheless, you can play whatever the heck you want to play as far as like the level 1 tuners go. You can play normals, you can do a lot of different things. Again, this is kind of like a build your own deck profile. Gold Sark I highly recommend you to run. So basically I would say I really recommend Glow Bulb. I would say these 20 cards right here are basically the core of what most builds will be playing, or you can swap out Beast King if you really want to, but generally this is basically almost set in stone. You can maybe mix a few of these, but for the most part this is the basic core. The rest of the cards that we'll talk about are kind of open to however you want to play, but yeah, we just have just level 1 tuners, and then Soul Charge. It's a pretty good card. Foolish, it just helps you with maybe your awkward hands. Maybe you have to have DDR, you can banish stuff, and then it'll just give you more stuff in the graveyard because you maybe want to use this, and it's just more utility with the card. And then Space Typhoon, obviously, if Vanity's Emptiness basically beats this deck really hard because there's nothing really you can do in the deck. And then I'm playing DDR because it allows you to extend your combos, and if you banish something, you can just grab it back, and then you can just overlay on top of overlay. And again, when you're banishing like 9 cards out of your opponent's deck and you get to Foolish Burial 9 cards, you know, it sets up a huge advantage for you. So I like just playing this card at 1. You can drop it if you want to. Galaxy Zero is just another like Monster Reborn essentially for the deck, because you can just target a Photon or Galaxy monster in the graveyard, and then bam, oh, free, what do I want? Just whatever, and then you get free pluses. Because you're just going to abuse this card as hard as possible. This deck, I haven't really seen anything in the Oshi that's making too good use of it. Like, it's pretty much Necros, Cleese, there's a few like obscure things, but it's like pretty much just like Necros is what's winning. And that deck hit pretty hard in the OCG, I would say. Like everything, just a little bit here, a little bit there. It's not just like they hit 1 card, they just like hit multiple stuff and put it down to 1. And then we have upstarts if you want to make the deck, you know, maybe a little bit faster, you want to drop some cards or whatever. And then trade-in, cards of consonants 1 for 1, and then Galaxy Wisdom is just a card I wanted to talk about. Basically, it's once per turn you can increase this card's level by 4, and then you contribute to add a Galaxy card from your deck to your hand, which has a little bit of utility. Sometimes you want that effect. But basically, the deck, again, it revolves around just getting out this card as many times as possible. Basically, you're guaranteed, as long as you go for 2 level 8s and you make one of these, you're going to be guaranteed to go for 2 of them, unless your opponent has back row, or they negate your effect or whatever. But even first turn, being able to just banish 6 cards out of their deck, and as well as Foolish Burial, and then on top of that, you're going to be able to make like a Stardust or whatever the heck you want to make. Basically, usually your field will end up being one of these guys, and then any level 8 Synchro. And then, of course, if you happen to, you know, open up really good, you can make maybe a Draco Sack too, in addition to your field that is relatively strong. Again, you make a relatively strong field, your opponent doesn't deal with it, you just win usually relatively quick. But I was trying out Blue Eyes with the trade-ins, and then also Flammable Guards with cards of consonants. Also, Whitestone could be an excellent card. I do really like Whitestone. I like sending this card to the graveyard when I'm going for this guy over here, because you get to Foolish Burial 3 Dragon-type monsters with different names. So the main card that you really need to send, though, it has to be Eclipse Wyvern. If you guys want to watch the video, I highly recommend you to watch it so you can get the basic idea of how the heck to play this deck. You want to for sure send Eclipse Wyvern. If you're playing Whitestone, definitely Whitestone, because that's you know, free plus essentially. And then any Dragon Ruler, it doesn't really matter which one. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and use the Dragon. And then before we get too ahead of ourselves, with Eclipse Wyvern, we do want to banish this card over here. So basically, send 3 cards. Again, if you're playing different builds, then obviously maybe swap out Whitestone. But pretty much Eclipse Wyvern, any other dragon, and then any Dragon Ruler. And then you're going to go ahead and activate Eclipse Wyvern's effect, you're going to be banishing the Red Eyes Darknessmetal Dragon. And then from there, you go ahead and banish Eclipse Wyvern, and then whatever other dragon you sent to special summon the Dragon Ruler that was also sent to the graveyard. And then from there, you get to add this card back. And then you're going to go ahead and banish this guy, and then you're going to go ahead and bring back another card, because that's Red Eyes Darknessmetal Dragon's effect. And then you go ahead and go for it again. And then again, you've already banished 3 cards of their deck, and then you're going to go ahead and banish 6. And then you get another Foolish Burial times 3. So you guys can see the deck gets a lot of free advantage relatively quick, as long as your play goes off. And then I was playing some of these cards that were kind of obscure, like the Malefic cards, because, you know, maybe you can make it. If you really wanted to, yeah, you could maybe make use if your opponent happens to have a field spell, but more than likely you won't be making these cards. But I felt like Galaxy Eyes could also be a card. It's a trade-in target. You can also use it with some of the other cards, so I was trying out that card. There's also Galaxy Knight, so if you control a Photon or Galaxy monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing. But the problem was, like, this card has to also be normal summon. But again, for different builds, you know, you might be playing something that revolves around galaxies, and therefore, yeah, you can make use of some of these other cards. Guardian Yados can also be good. It's also a wind. I know it's not a dragon, but basically all you want to do is be able to go for a rank 8 turn 1. And like I said, once you do that, you're Foolish Burling for 6. You're going to go ahead and banish 6 cards out of your opponent's deck. Huge advantage. And of course, you can extend your combos if you open up better. You can banish 9. You can Foolish 9. Yeah, it just extends your combos, like I said. This card was, if you control a level 8 monster, you can normal summon this card without attributing. I wish you had just, like, additional normal summons in the deck. Otherwise, yeah, I didn't really like this card too much. This card was pretty interesting, though. I like this card a little bit. It's when your opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then, if this card's defense is higher than the attacking monster's attack, destroy that attacking monster. An XYZ monster that was summoned using this card on the field as material gains this effect each time. The first time this card would be destroyed by battle, it is not destroyed. But pretty much you're just using it to special summon it, and maybe you can pop your opponent's monster. It's kind of cool. I like that ability, but I felt like that you had to wait, and like waiting in Yu-Gi-Oh! Never the best idea. There's also a Montage Dragon. It's kind of minus, but yeah, you could maybe, I mean, tactically if you're getting rid of the rulers, hey, that's fine if you're getting rid of what is it? The White Stone of Legend. Also, there's supposed to be a Black Stone of Legend. But yeah, you just send 3 other monsters from your hand to the graveyard, and it can't be special summoned by other ways, and this card gains the combined original levels of the sent monster times 300. You're never going to use it for that. It's basically just to dump stuff in the graveyard, and then get out a level 8, and then you can, like, normal summon something else, or, you know, do whatever you need to do. Maybe you can make use of that Parasitic the Interstellar Dragon, but for the most part, it's just level 8s. Light Pulsar can also make it so your play is super safe, because maybe you can end up with, like, a Red Eyes Darknessmetal Dragon. All your plays would usually end up with one of these. So you'll have Red Eyes, you'll have this, and then you'll have, like, a Stardust, and then maybe like that. And at that point, it's very difficult for most decks to deal with, unless they open up, like, amazing. But Light Pulsar can kind of help you survive, so it's not a bad card to send to the graveyard also, with the effect of this guy. And then the Exa Enforcer of the Necros can be very nasty. So this card has the effect of, if it's treated by a card effect, you can add 1 Dragon-type Necros monster. Ritual monster, you don't really use that effect. Let's just go over the real effect. If this card is banished, you can target one of your banished Necros monsters except for this card and special on that monster. You can only use 1 Exa Enforcer of Necros effect per turn, and only once that turn. Basically, all it comes down to, guys, is he's a water, and if you can abuse DeLorean and bounce these cards back and just keep on making these. There was a video, if I can remember where the heck I found it, this guy banishes 21 monsters out of his opponent's deck. His opponent actually didn't have enough monsters, so his opponent just couldn't do anything. And it is a mandatory effect that, where is it, your opponent banishes 3 monsters from their deck. So, yeah, basically the guy had to play with all the monsters in his hand. The guy just quit. But, again, if someone can link me the video, because I probably won't be able to find it, it was on some Japanese site, and before everyone starts posting hentai. But, anyways, basically, the guy goes for this effect, and he has the effect to banish a total up to 21 monsters. The guy doesn't have any monsters in his deck, so he just quit. But yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to abuse this card relatively hard. I forgot what the exact combo was. It might have been like Galaxy 0. Can you only use one of these? You can only use one of these. There's another Galaxy card, I believe. There's just a bunch of just random stuff that the guy was playing. It was kind of one of those times where it's like a really random way to, like, be able to sack your opponent super hard, and it probably wouldn't have been consistent. But nonetheless, I just want to mention it's there, you know. And this card is also a dragon too, and it's also water. But basically, it's just used to make DeLorean to bounce back and basically abuse this card as hard as possible. And then there's also Ancient Rules, which I really didn't like, but it was there as an option. I figured I'd just mention it because we might be getting some more support for the red eyes. I don't know if there's going to be something that's going to incorporate red eyes into this type, because this definitely seems something that's new, and they're introducing red eyes, so I'm like, well, maybe they'll somehow make these go well with each other, so maybe this card will be useful. And then there's also the Melody of Awakening Dragon. It's a pretty cool card. It says you discard one card to add up to 2 Dragon-type monsters with 3,000 or more attack and 2,500 or less defense. So that would indeed cover Blue Eyes. So I was like, well, if you're going minus with this, maybe you can kind of counter itself. Originally, I was playing 1 because you can discard things like this and this, so you don't really go minus anyways. And then you get to add up to 2, so it is kind of like, it's supposed to neutralize, but it can end up being like a +1 if you want to look at it like that. And then you can kind of cycle through your cards, kind of deck them. But anyways, guys, if you guys know any more cards that we can incorporate into this deck, I'd love to know, because I think that this deck, it has a little bit of potential. I don't think it's as consistent as Necros, because that deck has like way too many searchers. But if you're able to get it out, relatively quick, because when you banish cards out of Necros, sometimes that can actually hurt them, especially when it's monsters that they need. Most decks don't run monsters that they just don't want, unless it's, of course, Ritual Beasts. I would say the Ritual Beasts or the Spirit Beasts are probably one of the only archetypes that's like, oh sweet, I gotta banish stuff. That's like totally okay with them. They won't mind at all if you're gonna be banishing monsters. But other than that, though, there probably is a few other random decks that would benefit from banishing their own monsters out of their own deck. But for the most part, especially against decks that run low monster count, high traps and spells, yeah, you can definitely wreck them. Like Yosenju, for example, a lot of Yosenju builds are like under 15 monsters, some are 11, and if you just get rid of a bunch of them, they literally can't even play. But that's the point of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. This deck does lose to Vanity's Emptiness as a heads up. It loses really hard to Vanity's Emptiness or the Jinlock. So maybe if you want to play multiple MST. Again, this is not a deck profile like on screen that you're seeing. Basically, these 20 cards, these first two rows, I would say I highly recommend you guys to use that as your starting core, and then add in whatever you want. Multiple copies, obviously, not just one random upstart. Yeah, obviously like 3 of these, or like 3 of these if you want, because Vanity's is pretty strong in the game, even to now. I don't know, maybe going into the next ban list, I'll just be like, okay, let's remove it. After the reprint, guys, let's go ahead and ban it. But anyways, like I say, if you guys know any other cards that will work well in this archetype, or any other combos that I just haven't shown off, I'd love to hear in the comment section below. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have fun building this deck. Azneyes signing out.